So there's four of those. And the biggest one is the manager-employee relationship. So when you talk about onboarding, engaging, growing with a company, that manager is really your go-to person within that company. They technically are the company to the employee. So the frontline manager to me is the most important person in the company. They deal with the culture, basically anything that happens to your career comes from your manager, whether they give you the resources that you need, whether they give you the support, whether they help you grow, all those kind of things. And some of the other things we'll talk about here in just a second. Gallup actually says that employee-manager relationship is 70% of the variance in employee engagement. 70%. So if you focus on the management process, you're going to get, that's where all your bang for your buck is going to come from. Really quick wins. So what does that mean, though? That means you got to look at who your managers are and make sure you have the right managers in the right role. So this goes to another Gallup study. Gallup says that 1 in 10 managers are in the right role. They have all the skills they need to be a good manager. 1 or 2 more with some training can meet that expectation and do well in the management role. The other 7 should have never been put in that role. They're causing more problems, causing more harm than they are good at that point. So they're not helping the company because they don't want to be in that role. They don't have the skills that they need to do that. They're probably not people. The only reason they got promoted was because they were a great individual contributor. And that's what companies do. They take their individual contributors and they promote them into management, but they don't really consider whether that person has the management skills to do that. So you put somebody who doesn't want to be in management, who doesn't understand management, trying to manage other people, everybody gets frustrated. They get frustrated as a manager. Your employees get frustrated. You get the turnover, things like that. So when I go into companies, I sit down with all the managers because I just want to evaluate, who I think is in the right roles. And what I've learned is there's just one question that I can ask that tells me whether or not that person is really in the right role. And that's, tell me about your people. If a manager can't tell me sort of in depth about their people, what their goals are, what's this person's goal? What are they trying to attain by being in this role? What are their goals? What are their aspirations down the road? That kind of stuff. The people who aren't good managers will just tell you what their job title is and maybe some of what they do, but they don't really understand why they're doing it or how they got to that role or anything like that. So, when I go back to the senior leadership and I say, I think these are the managers that we need to transition out of management into another role, the first thing they want to do is say, oh, so we should just fire them. And I'm like, no. Why would you fire them? You put them in this role. You set them up for failure. So you can't fire them. This is your problem. It's not their problem. The only way they could move up, the only way they could get more money within the company was to take on this role. So why wouldn't they? You need to find another path for people to go. And that's a pretty hard sell with a lot of companies, figuring out a subject matter expert path for people to go on. But in the end, if you keep those people that were good individual contributors, if you keep them innovating and contributing, that's just going to help your company. They're going to be happier. That's going to translate into an engaged employee, and that's going to filter down to the people they work with, getting that knowledge and things like that, and mentoring, things like that. So, and then you've got the right manager in the right role. So that's a big part of what I do is trying to help the manager that's not in the right role understand they're not in the right role, which they usually know, but it's an ego thing about, oh, I was a manager and now I'm not going to be a manager anymore. So how do we make that transition so that everybody benefits and nobody looks like they're being, demoted or things like that? I think what the interesting part is, and most people probably not realize this, is when you have a manager that's not doing well in his role or doesn't want to be in that role or just not effective, if you look at that team, there's somebody on that team that's stepping up and doing that leadership role, but they're not getting paid for it.
Yep.
And it's very easy to find that person. You just talk to the teammates and they'll pretty quickly identify who that go-to person is. Yep. And so that's the person you need to consider putting in that management role. So it's not a whole lot of, now we have a management opening. Now we have to go out and hire all these people, and this process and cost money, all that kind of stuff. Literally look inside your company. You've probably got that person right there in that same team, which will help the continuity of everything that's happening.